Family Creeps presents Quarantine Horror Stories, Episode 4. I Think My Husband is a Serial Killer, Part 1. Written by The Dark Diggler. Narrated by The Dark Diggler. It's funny how life works. I've been married to my husband Felix for 15 years. We've had 3 beautiful children, all boys. You would think after 15 years of marriage, you would know a person. Boy, was I dead wrong. Pun intended. Up until now, I always thought Felix was a loving, honest man and an amazing father. But I'm beginning to realize Felix has a dark side he keeps hidden. Felix is a surgeon and a damn good one to boot. He takes on most of the cases that other doctors won't. I think he gets a kick out of proving people wrong. Most importantly, he's a people person. He's really great at getting to know his patients. Felix can put their mind at ease before surgery. He always says that's the most important step before any surgery, making sure your patient is comfortable. I was a legal secretary at a very popular law office. I enjoyed what I did and was good at my job. I was all about the particulars, never leaving any stone unturned. Before the virus made national headlines, our town was rocked with a string of gruesome murders. The media named the killer the Cape Town Castrator. This maniac focused on males. He would cut their genitals off and place it in the victim's mouth. He has a confirmed kill of 6 men and counting. They suspect there are far more. He's been traveling to different towns, killing men at will. One night, Felix and I were laying in bed watching the late night news. The story came on and I watched intently. I really was interested in this killer. Maybe because it was close to home, or maybe it was my sixth sense trying to tell me something. Either way, I was very intrigued. Oh my God, honey, they found 2 more men. That's 6 in total. My husband briefly looked up at the TV, nodded his head, and continued to read his book. This guy is crazy, I said, shaking my head. Maybe he is. Or maybe he has a reason for doing what he's doing, Felix said as he lowered his reading glasses to look at me. Yeah, he's crazy, maybe. We don't know what's in his head. He may think he's doing the right thing. Please, Felix, enlighten me. Well, you remember Thanos from your Marvel movies you love so much. Of course. What does he have to do with this discussion? I asked Felix. Why do you love Thanos? The character, I mean. Why do you love him so much? Felix asked with a smirk on his face. Well, he wasn't your typical villain. He didn't want money or power. He actually thought he was doing the right thing. Exactly, Felix said as he pointed to the sky. Thanos thought he was fixing things. Maybe this Cape Town castrator thinks he's fixing things. All I'm saying, I would love to get into this guy's head and find out his reasoning for his murders. I just sat back and thought. My husband was a thinking man. That's what I love most about him. I did find it a bit odd that he thought about wanting to talk to a serial killer, but I dismissed it as Felix just being a thinker. Yeah, Felix, I guess. If you put it like that, you're right. People are like onions. We have layers. That's all I'm trying to say, sweetheart, Felix said, leaning in to kiss my forehead. I didn't think much of it or the conversation, and I went to bed. Within a few weeks, the news began to overflow with coverage over the pandemic that's been sweeping the globe. The Cape Town castrator took a major back seat. As the pandemic grew worse, social distancing became relevant. I began to work from home. Schools were shut down. Needless to say, I was extremely busy at home. Between homeschooling and work, I must say, teachers truly deserve a raise. Felix was on the front lines of the pandemic. I was so proud of him. As the pandemic grew, my husband began to change. He was irritable. and tired. I figured it was because he was working on the front lines. He would come home through the garage and go straight down to his man cave / office area. He would shower and change immediately, then come upstairs and greet his family. Felix began to spend hours in the basement. I would go down and knock on his office door, and he would say, "I'll be up in a few," very quickly. I didn't want to add more stress to his life, so I just left him alone. I really started to worry though when he asked about the Cape Town castrator. "Have you heard anything about the castrator?" Felix asked as he took his glasses off. "No, honey, it's been nonstop coverage of the pandemic." Felix threw his glasses on the bed. "What? There is a serial killer on the loose. Why is there not enough coverage about this?" "Honey, calm down." "Never mind," Felix said sharply. "I can't sleep. I'll be in my office." Felix grabbed his robe and slammed the door. This infatuation with this killer started to bother me. He would watch the news every night in anticipation of hearing any information about the Cape Town castrator. Every night, Felix would grow more frustrated that nothing was being said about the killer, or if there was anything said, it was a very quick 5-minute story. He came home from the hospital the next night and did his usual basement thing, but this time he came upstairs within 30 minutes. He gave me a big kiss and hugged the boys. We had dinner together as a family, something we had not done in a while. It was amazing, but in the back of my mind, I wondered why the sudden change in his mood. I pushed the thought to the back of my mind and made a conscious effort to just enjoy my husband. When it was time for bed, Felix was excited. He ran to the remote. "I think tonight they're going to talk about Mr. Cape Town castrator," Felix said, rubbing his hands together. He sat on the edge of the bed like a small child, waiting for Santa to come down the chimney. The news opened up about the pandemic numbers. Felix's excitement dipped slightly and he began to become annoyed. The news anchor said, "Next up, Cape Town castrator strikes again. We will have details in 60 seconds. Felix's eyes grew wide with excitement. See, I told you he's still out there." I smiled and laid back on my bed. I was far from excited. I was worried. How did he know that tonight, out of all nights, the news would run a story about the killer? Why was he so infatuated with this killer? We are in the middle of a pandemic, something the world hasn't seen in a century, and he's excited about a damn serial killer. I decided that night I was going to investigate and answer my own questions. I started the next day as soon as he left for his day. I put the boys in the family room with their books. They would be buried for a while with their Zoom classes. I hurried to the basement and opened the door. Felix kept the immaculate man cave. I had to be careful to keep everything in place. Didn't want him to notice someone was down there snooping around. Nothing seemed to be out of place. He had a big screen TV, a bar, and a pool table. Your typical man stuff. I walked into his office, which was even more immaculate than the man cave. I started to shift through his papers, nothing out of the ordinary. Just his patient's info, books, notes that he takes for work. I looked around for a few and felt a cold draft on my left foot. I turned to face a bookshelf with all of his medical books and some golfing trophies. I walked slowly to the bookshelf, and the draft got stronger. I paused and eyed the bookshelf hard and long. Something just didn't seem right about this bookshelf. I just couldn't put my finger on what. I gazed over the books. Every book was in place except for one book. I reached out cautiously and pushed the book back in place. The bookshelf began to rattle. The whole bookcase began to slide to the right. It reminded me of an Indiana Jones movie when he found the secret passage. My jaw dropped to the floor. It was a big electric-looking metal door with blinking lights. There was no way I would know how to get this door open. I grabbed my phone and snapped a few photos. I pulled the book back out and the bookcase slid back to normal. I ran out of the office and ran out of the basement. My mind was spinning. What the hell is behind that door? What kind of shit is Felix into? I didn't want to confront Felix until I knew for sure what was going on. So I decided I'll keep it to myself until I was able to figure out a way to get past that door. Felix came home and he was excited, like the night before. I just wanted to get past the night so I can begin my mission to get into that damn room. Felix felt a little frisky that night. We made love, but my mind wasn't there. We finished and he passed out on the bed. I stayed up, took my phone, and went down to the kitchen to get some milk. I googled the pics on the door and found out what kind of door it was. It was an expensive door designed to keep people out. I googled and looked for hours how to get through. I decided to look on the dark web for answers. I downloaded Tor and began to search. Jackpot. I found a site where resident thieves and scum congregated and talked about their crimes. I posted the pics and asked if anyone had any ideas on how to crack this door. For the most part, I got a bunch of BS, but one person did give me a good answer that I thought was worth a shot. The person said that the door has one flaw. It's electric, so if power is shut off, the lock will unlock for 5 seconds while it reboots and switches to battery power. It sounded good enough. I said thanks and had my plan for tomorrow. The boys will be in the backyard in the pool. It was gonna be a hot day tomorrow. While they were in the pool, I'll be in the basement trying to figure out this mystery. The next day came, Felix went to work. The boys were eager to get out of the house. I did all the necessary work I had to do for my job and logged out for the day. I only had 5 seconds to get into the door once the power was shut off. The problem was the main circuit breaker was in the garage. Shit, I thought, I'm gonna have to ask one of the boys to cut the power. I asked my oldest to do it. He won't ask any questions about why. He cut the power, the basement went dark. The door power went out. I heard the locks click open. My heart pounded as I opened the door. The lights came back on and what I saw made my skin crawl. It was another room filled with pics of all the victims of the Cape Town castrator. Names, dates, information about the victims, charts, daily routines, and times of all the victims. I couldn't believe my eyes. Was Felix that obsessed with this killer? The thought never entered my mind he could be a killer. I moved through the room slowly, making sure not to move anything out of place. I saw the laptop on the desk. It was unlocked on the homepage. I began to look through and I found some audio. 24 audio recordings. Each was labeled Dr. Lamb's sessions, all the way through 24. That name, Dr. Lamb, seemed familiar, but I couldn't place it. The first date was November 12th, 1993. I clicked play, and it was Dr. Lamb's voice. Here was what it said. Dr. Lamb, Chronicles for patient Felix Leon, November 12th, 1993. I stopped the audio. Felix never told me he went to therapy as a teenager. I hesitated. I wasn't sure if I was ready to go down this rabbit hole. But I've been married to this man for 15 years, and in 2 days, I've already discovered another side of this man. I pressed play. I needed to know the other side of my husband, Felix. Hey guys, I hope you guys really liked that story. That's part 1. Part 2 will be coming very shortly. I know it sucks to leave you guys on a cliffhanger, but I need you guys to come back and listen. So hope you guys liked the story. If you did like the story, if you like the quarantine horror stories, comment, shoot us an email, like, subscribe, share it with someone who's into horror and who's into dark stories like this one. And hope you guys are practicing social distancing. It's so important that we stay safe out there. I want you guys to come back. I want you guys to be safe. I want you guys to be healthy. And I will see you guys in our next video. Take care, guys, and stay creepy.